What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Cashflow Conversations, where we interview entrepreneurs on their journey to becoming their own boss. And what is that like? Typically, we don't have a lot of cheerleaders in our corner to tell us to go take risk and start our own business, but this podcast is all about people who have done that and then have succeeded doing it as well. And so today we have Barb Gerbitz, a world famous horse trainer who resides in Indiana and does Illinois. I'm sorry. Yeah, I knew it was up there. It's Yankee land. It's up there anyway. But Barb has a heck of a resume, has done a lot of work with some famous equestrian people and has clients all over the country. So Barb, it's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I don't know if I'm world famous, but I like to work with my students and their horses, and so that's what I do.
I love it. So I've heard your name for years. My parents have a horse farm, and they've talked about the famous Barb coming into town and doing clinics and things. How do you get started in horse training? I mean, how does somebody get going in that world?
So my situation was unique because originally I went to school for pre-vet. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian, got into a university in Wisconsin. And once I started into that program, I realized that was not for me. Lot of books, lots of math, lots of things that I just wasn't willing and able to appropriately invest my time in. So I started looking around for other career opportunities. I found a college called Blackhawk College in Galva, Illinois, which was an equestrian school. And I thought, I worked for the Parks and Rec in Oak Park when I was younger. Maybe I'll just learn how to work with horses and just run summer camps for kids. And once I got into that program, it just opened me up to all the options that the horse industry has to offer. Specifically for me, the colt class was the game changer. It was interesting. It was physically demanding, to work with young horses, and mentally, it was interesting to see how young horses learn and try to figure out and put myself in their shoes, so to speak, so that I could teach them appropriately. And
so you didn't have any equestrian experience before that?
No, not really. I rode a little bit when I was younger, but that was just to volunteer at like a local livery stable that was like an hour away. And then I was up in Alaska the summer before I attended Blackhawk College to just work as a wrangler, basically just taking out trail rides for people that were coming off cruise ships.
Oh, wow. And so you said colt class. So that is what you're working with horses that are not used to being saddled?
Yes. So these typically, when we say colt starting, it could be a young horse, it could be a stud horse or a gelding or a filly, and they are getting started riding, just getting them broke to ride.
Interesting. So is that like working with a teenager?
Well, I don't know for sure. I think the horses, they're just different than people. We'll just say that. Yeah.
And so you go to school for this, and then you get out of college. Is there a plethora of ranches hiring people in your position? I mean, what do you do with this?
Absolutely not. So when I started, I knew about, different sectors of the industry, and being that I wanted to start colts, I didn't know anybody that was needing colt starters specifically. There was a few local trainers that needed, people to start colts, and So I worked in a few different barns to do that, but then I quickly realized that I wasn't getting paid what I was worth.
Mhm.
And so I just started my own business. If I wanted to even work out on a ranch, um, it would have been very difficult to get a foot in the door because of my lack of practical ranching experience. They need real riders that know their job to do those types of things. So I qualified to start colts in my own barn, and my first facility was a corn crib and a round pen and a single strand of hot wire fence that kept my client horses in.
Wow.
And I just started my business like that.
So you didn't have it all lined up perfect. You just got started.
That's exactly right, Matt. I had a passion for it. As soon as I started my first colt at school, I recognized that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life is work with and develop young horses. And I was also an assistant teacher while I was at school, because they recognized that I had a very vested interest in not only teaching horses how to learn things, but teaching people how to learn. So I attended my classes and I attended every other class that they would let me sit in on. So I was
Interesting.
either sitting in classrooms or sitting on the rail watching instructors teach classes. I was at school all the time, and they ended up allowing me to co-teach with the other instructors.
Cool. Is this where you met Rob?
So he graduated a year before me, and I was on the Ag Business Club, and he came back for the annual ski trip,
Cool.
and that's where we met.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're getting out of school. You start your own thing. I mean, what a great takeaway. I want to make sure we spend a second on. How many people don't start their journey because it's not perfectly laid out. I mean, you just started a
Yeah.
podcast too, and it's like
Oh my gosh.
we find ourselves in the same stressful situation. Like, I know the direction I want to go, but I don't know exactly how to get there. Well, the only way to find out is to take a step in that direction.
Yeah, I think had I known more about the horse industry and what it actually took to be a trainer and make a living doing it successfully as a colt starter, because that's sort of starting backwards. Usually people learn to ride broke horses and finished horses, and then they go backwards from there into colt starting. So I just dove right into the deep end with that. But because I was so drawn to it, there was no other option for me. So I just hyper focused, got all the information I could, and just started working through one horse at a time. And, you know,
So, how do you find clients in that? Like, I've never seen someone. I'm not around the equestrian world very much, but
and
like, there are people that have horses that need to get started.
for sure. Oh yeah. And the colt starting, you know, that job, not a lot of people are moving into that sector. We're losing a lot of our good colt starters, real qualified colt starters. Anybody can hang a shingle that says horse trainer or colt starter, but
Yeah.
the really good ones are starting to dwindle because it's physically demanding, takes a lot of time. There's a lot of risk to our safety. And so not a lot of people can afford, to do it. And they go get a real job or just ride horses that are already started.
Right. So so you'll have a client that has a young horse, and then they would send it to you for a few months at a time to get it started.
Yeah, originally I did what was called the 30-day wonder. And I would start a colt in 30 days, which is uncommon these days to be able to put a colt to get started into training for less than 60 days. Usually people want them for 3 or 4 months now, but mine was 30 days. I charged $250 if they brought the
Wow.
hay and the grain.
Wow.
And I guaranteed that that horse would be gentle, that it would be able to tie, pick up all 4 feet, walk, trot, and canter, and that you'd be able to ride it down the road and back safely. And I did it.
Wow.
I did it over and over and over again. And so when you can produce a good product or service, people start to pass your name around, and then you get calls. And I did my jobs well, and I never was out of work.
Interesting. Did you raise your prices, or have you raised your prices?
Yeah, for sure.
That seems really inexpensive to have a horse started for 30 days.
Oh, it was ridiculous. Even back then when I was starting, because I didn't have like any mentorship or guidance, like, and the internet was like just starting to be a thing. I mean, so it wasn't like I was able to see what the other guys and gals were charging.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a ton of gals starting colts. That was, just not really, common. So I didn't have a good community of people. I'm not a very good networker that way. I like to just do my thing and work and keep my head down and hang out with the horses or work with my students. So, I
I've
didn't
noticed
really
that
know.
you're not eager to do self-promotion. I understand that.
Not very good at that. I'll admit it.
Yeah. Well, that's okay though, because word of mouth is one of the best ways to grow a business. And what we end up doing typically in the beginning is making up for lack of experience by reducing the amount that we charge,
Yeah, yeah,
And it's important to make sure that that number rises with ability,
for sure.
Otherwise you're doing it for free. And then there's a perception that you're not good because it's too cheap.
Yes, yes. And I've run into some good people along the way that they were business minded, or they worked in the white collar world. And a lot of my clients back then and even now, they could afford to pay somebody to do work for them. So I was just a laborer. But some people saw how much I poured into what I did and would just help me, and they would give me advice, or they would point me in the right directions. And I always was so grateful for those little kind of step up kind of advisement from people, because
Yeah.
that's not what I was focusing on, business wise. I was just starting colts and learning how to train horses.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's fast forward, because are you still doing a lot of starting, or is it more of like equestrian dressage type stuff?
So now I started my last colt for the public about 2 years ago. So I've been teaching and training for 28 years now, and 25 of those years I started colts for the public or restarted horses that were sort of needing more gaps filled in. And but yeah, I decided that I wanted to devote my time now to developing my young horses, and start teaching my horses towards a certain discipline so that I could start showing a little bit.
Cool. Cool.
Mhm.
So what's your ideal target market now on the coaching side? Who do you enjoy coaching the most?
So I work with everybody from rank novice riders that just got into horses to professionals, trainers, other trainers, and I will collaborate on horses, or I will visit their facilities to work with their students to introduce the horsemanship. And because I am well versed in the Western and classical dressage discipline, I can speak, their languages,
Yeah, those are
and
two
then I
separate camps, aren't
incorporate.
they?
Yeah, well, sort of. It all kind of ties together at just basic equitation, really, and then you just change the outfit. Um, but there's some terms and some cultural things that go along with English and Western ridership. And I understand those differences, and it makes it a nice bridge for me to be able to speak their language specifically.
Yeah. So when you go, and you host your own events, or do you only go to other people's events?
Yeah, so a couple times a year at least, I'll have a small gathering, a couple clinics at my house. But now my daughter is uh, training, and she is a colt starter and an intermediate horse trainer now. So she's taking up, some of the pen space down front, which is great. And so I don't have the ability to overnight people for 2-day clinics here, which is fine. I'm hoping to grow our facility a little bit in the future
Yeah.
and be able to host 2-day clinics. But for now, 1-day clinics would be my deal.
And so if people want to use your services, you'll go to their farm, and do you bring your
Yeah.
own horses, and you usually set like a 2 or 3 day thing? Do you have like what's that process look like?
Yeah, so yeah, my normal for the last 21 years is to travel to other farms. Um, when I first started that, I was just doing 1-day clinics. Now I do 2-day clinics. When I was doing the 1-day ones and I was local, I was doing up to 58 clinics a year. And it was sometimes back to back clinics, like a 1-day clinic in Iowa and then a 1-day clinic up near Chicago. So I would just be hustling around all the time.
Wow.
And then I moved into a 2-day clinic format, which I loved, and my clients liked it too. And then I did change my rates at that time also, and then started traveling a little further out from home. So the furthest out I travel now is Tennessee,
Okay,
the
cool.
great state
Nashville.
of Tennessee. Yep,
Wonderful state.
it
Wonderful
is.
people.
Yes, wonderful people.
If I said the name Buck Branaman, what would you say?
I would say Master Horseman, and I would say that guy, um, he has influenced a lot of good horsemen. He has influenced the way that I think about and the things that I do with horses and the way I do things with horses. And he's one of those people in my life that um, he's a really good judge of people's ability. And in the few times that he ever saw me ride or that I spoke with him, he evaluated me quickly and gave me opportunities that I would never otherwise have had.
Wow.
And yes, so like just in being in like colt starting clinics with him or going to the Legacy of Legends twice. Those were privileges that I was able to have because of Buck. And yeah, I owe a lot to him because not only were those opportunities for other people to get to know me and my work and get around other professionals, but it gave me a lot of confidence knowing that somebody like that saw me and respected what I was doing.
Talk to me. One thing that I noticed about Buck is that he created a heck of a business around it all.
He did. And
You don't see that much in the horse world.
well, yeah, and the thing that Buck has is his people, like the people that surround him and that ride with him regularly, they love him. Like they believe in him and he's on a mission. And his mission is to honor his primary teacher, Ray Hunt, and also Tom and Bill Dorrance, I believe. I don't want to speak for him, but I think people like that about him. And they also, maybe some people knew him for his story. His upbringing was difficult and those types of things. But I think primarily they see, what he's doing, and he also does it really well. And so all those things combined just gives him loads of credibility. And then, he's got a couple of books, and he was in the movie. Well, he wasn't in the movie. He helped to train the horses for a movie, and so he's gained a lot of credibility with those things.
So Ray Hunt is the one that kind of started a lot of the horse whisperer type of philosophy. Talk about the philosophy that you use in your training that kind of separates you from everybody else too. Because like you said, anybody can put a sign out and say horse whisperer.
Right. Well, I believe it was the Dorrances, specifically Tom, that started it, and Ray was the one that brought it out to the world, because Ray would travel with the horses, and then he would do cold starting and publicly all over the place, and showed people over and over again what kind of relationship we could have with horses if we just tried to understand how they think and collaborate with them. And that is what resonated with me, and why I do what I do, and how I present myself to horses, and how I teach my students to work with their horses, is try to be collaborative with them, because they're thinking, feeling beings just like us. They have their own way of perceiving the world, and how they interact with other horses. But certainly with our big human brains, we can learn, their culture, so to speak, and how they communicate, to join them in their way.
So that's a lot of what you teach is how to be more in touch with what the horse is feeling.
Yes, in a practical way, and not, I don't get off the rails with it. I like my horses to operate respectfully and on time, and I like them to be handy and do all those things, but I do it with the utmost respect for them as an individual, same as I would expect somebody to treat me.
Love it. It's wonderful. I know the people that when my family goes with you, they love the philosophy, and it's not frou-frou pie in the sky stuff. I mean, you're dealing with real animals, which is the part that's cool, because you can compare it to what they do with Tennessee walkers.
Oh, yeah.
The abuse that some of those horses can take, it's crazy. And so that's like not at all what you do.
Not at all. Not even close. Yeah.
Nothing against Tennessee Walker people, I guess, but I've seen some pretty gnarly videos of putting those weights on the feet. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the soaring and all that. No, that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do with horses. And it doesn't mean that we can't have a difficult or serious conversation with our horses. But we have to think about doing these things in a thoughtful way, like think before you do, and not in an emotional, reactive way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. So like not emotional action. It's like you got to be like in the moment, which requires all of your attention. And I imagine it got a lot more fun when things started to click for you. When you start to hear the Ray Hunt philosophy, and working with the horse, not on the horse or against the horse. Do you remember when it started to click for you, and you started to be more present?
I feel like I started to hit my stride about 10 years in. And so that was many, many hundreds of horses into the game. And I started to see, patterns in horses' behaviors. I learned how to read their gestures and their expressions better. I learned my timing, when to ask and when to release. And I also learned, how to manage my own thoughts and emotions and look at things in an objective way instead of in a subjective way, to determine what did I need to do next.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I look at money like that, because the best thing that you can do as an entrepreneur to serve your clients is to be in business next year and the year after. And then it's required to ask for revenue. You have to get paid for the services. So understanding the financial side of everything also can either help or hurt your ability to grow as an entrepreneur. I had that moment. I started in the financial world in like 2011. And then it wasn't until about 2018 that I realized how money works and how people work. Because like you said, I don't want to soar the client. I don't want to like put weights on their feet. I want to show them here's what your options are. Here's what it would look like if. And giving good examples. So it took me 7 years to get really comfortable before it all clicked in the financial world as well.
Yeah. And that was how I found you, very appealing, because the way that you presented the information, I don't know if it's just a horse person thing or an every person thing, but when people start talking finances, I, kind of draw a blank. I don't know where to put my money, how to use it, how to make it work for me. And you can listen to all the finance podcasts on the planet and still be completely clueless.
Yeah.
And because of, my association with your sister, Emmy Love, who is also a fantastic instructor down in Tennessee.
Yes, she is.
And through her, then I knew you. And there was already a level of trust because, she wasn't saying that anything that you were doing was shifty, because we always wonder, like, is this legit? Yeah. And I didn't understand at first what the deal was with the life insurance and how that could work for me outside of just being dead.
I know it.
And your school platform that you use, which is set up like Facebook, and it's easy to navigate that way, had that classroom where you had all those short videos and you were teaching me and explaining to me exactly how it works. You weren't asking me to just blind faith jump in because you said so. You actually took the time to create those videos to educate me. And I took the time to watch every single one of them. And then I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And then it didn't seem so shifty. I was like, this is actually legit. And then I looked up a number of other podcasts that talked about these types of insurance, like finance things, and how to create cash flow out of it. And I was like, this is a no-brainer. Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I spent a lot of time working on that stuff so that people can go through it on their own time, and they can rewind it and they can ask questions and they can set up a one-on-one right there. But I think that's a missing piece in the financial world. And I use myself as an example. When I was in grad school, I was working for an architectural firm and funding a 401k, making $15 an hour, smallest tax bracket of my life, 23 years old. And I'm saving for retirement in an account that's going to postpone tax that I can't use for 40 years. And I watched all this stuff happen around me, and I'm like, man, I don't think I should be doing this. And that's what started my curiosity journey. And I saw it really affect other people. And that's when I knew I didn't want to do drawings anymore. I wanted to help people understand that just because something's popular doesn't mean that it's right.
That's right. that's the same deal in the horse world. It's difficult for the equine consumer to seek legitimate knowledge because anybody can put their sign up, and social media makes everybody able to look like a superstar.
Yeah, you get purple lights in the background and
right. And it's hard for the consumer to determine who really has the experience, the real experience and knowledge of thousands of horses under their belt versus, the new person who just wants to say, I'm a clinician or I'm a riding instructor or I'm a trainer.
Yeah.
And then they end up pouring money, into some bad decisions, and it's never good. But yeah, doing it like you're doing it, where you're teaching and really just taking your time to do that, makes it made all the difference for me anyways as a consumer of your product.
And I think you could borrow some of that technique when you start recording your clinics and packaging those for people to allow, so because someone maybe they might be in Wyoming and they want to see Barb do her thing. I think you could package that the same way, because I think a lot of people would pay you to see you work. So with that being said, how can people get a hold of you? You have a website, correct?
Yes, it's Barb Gerbitz, BarbGerbitz.com.
And do you have a date for your next clinic?
The next clinic is at the beginning of May at Otter Point Farm in Rossville, Tennessee.
Oh, cool.
And they can look at my whole season schedule for this year right on my website on the schedule page.
Beautiful. And I will put a link to all of your contact information in the description of this. So if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, then just look at the description and you'll be able to get a hold of Barb and see where she is next. Barb, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anything you want to leave for the equestrian people that are scared to get started?
Well, I'm easy to get a hold of, and I would love to talk to you. If you need some advice or some instruction, just give me a shout. I'm around.
Love it. We'll put the contact information down below. Barb, have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.